Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name's John Coughlin. I'm on the community relations team at GitLab. Really excited for a great meetup today. We have one of our GitLab heroes joining to present, and I'll introduce him in just a minute. One thing I wanted to do just before we get into the meetup too much is just remind everyone about our code of conduct. At GitLab, we value diversity and inclusion. Just want to make sure that everyone is, feels comfortable and is treated with respect as they're participating in these events. So I've shared a link to the code of conduct, in the Zoom chat. And if you, encounter any issues during the event, please let me know. You can send me a DM through Zoom chat, or you can email evangelist@gitlab.com, and we'll work to resolve any of your concerns. One other thing I wanted to ask is if folks are comfortable, it'd be great if you could turn on your cameras so we can see all your faces. It helps, add a little bit of a personal touch to the event. And I'm sure, Nico, as the presenter, wouldn't mind seeing who's out there and joining for his talk. And I want to thank you all for joining. I know times are tough right now, and folks have lots of competing priorities, and there's, just a ton of events that are available to everybody seemingly every day. And we're really grateful that you've opted to spend some time with the GitLab community today. And I'm really excited to be here for this talk with you. So to quickly introduce GitLab for folks that are kind of new to GitLab and maybe joined because they saw someone retweet something, or a friend shared this with them. GitLab's a complete CI/CD kind of tool chain in a single application. Basically, the entire DevOps lifecycle in a single application with one interface, one conversation, one permission model, thousands of features. It's pretty amazing what we offer in GitLab, and we're just getting started. And I can see some of the names and faces on the call today. And one thing that's cool about GitLab is that we are an open core company, and folks can contribute to the product. And so if you have any questions about that, definitely let me know. Some of the other cool things about GitLab, we're the largest all remote company in the world. So I joined, about a year and a half ago, and been working remotely the entire time. And so if folks, that are just starting to work remotely because of lockdowns or shelter in place requirements in their areas, and you need some help figuring out, whether it's, how to interview remotely or what office chair to get, we have all of that information in our handbook. So definitely would love for you to take a look at that. You can just Google GitLab all remote, and you'll find lots of great resources for you and your teams. And yeah, I just wanted to also point out, about our handbook. We don't just have all remote information there. We actually run the entire company out of our handbook. It's completely kind of open to everyone. So you can see our roadmaps, our strategies, who's on which teams, which sales folks are covering which territories. We're a completely transparent company, and everything's in the handbook. So if you're just kind of curious to learn more about, GitLab as a business, not just the product, I'd encourage you to dig through the handbook. It's really interesting. And one of the things that tends to attract a lot of new folks to our community. And it's a great resource for folks, as I mentioned earlier. So just a little bit of a breakdown about what we'll be doing today. We have Nico Meisenzahl, who's one of our GitLab heroes. He's going to be giving us a great presentation on enhancing your Kubernetes CI/CD pipelines with GitLab and open source. Really excited about that. I don't think we'll be doing breakout groups today because he's asked for a little bit of extra time, but I encourage everybody to stick around afterwards and just hang out like you would at a normal meetup, and we'll see who's in the conversation following his talk. And certainly if folks have questions, he's allowed us to kind of interrupt him. So I'll be trying to find ways to do that during the talk. But if not, you can save your questions for afterwards and ask him then. Just asking folks just to stay muted if you're not going to be asking questions, and that way we don't interrupt our presenter. And with that, I'll be handing it over to Nico to kind of get into the talk that you all came to hear.
Okay, so let me share my screen. So you should now see my screen, hopefully. Okay, perfect. So let me jump into the talk. So John always mentioned it, it's about enhancing your Kubernetes CI/CD with GitLab and with open source tools. Yeah, so short introduction of mine. I'm Nico Meisenzahl, working as a senior cloud and DevOps consultant at Meetup. It's a Germany-based Microsoft partner and doing consulting and application development. I am a GitLab Hero, Microsoft MVP and Docker community leader, and doing stuff around Kubernetes, DevOps, and cloud. So what I would like to talk about today. So basically, I've prepared 5 small topics. All of them are more an overview instead of a deep dive, but all show how you nicely can integrate your GitLab CI/CD with Kubernetes and enhance it with open source tools. So first of all, we have how you can move your pipeline workload into your cluster. So basically, run your pipeline jobs in your Kubernetes cluster. Then we will talk about container image builds on Kubernetes, because now you're running everything in container on a Kubernetes cluster. You need somehow a nice solution to also build the container images in a Kubernetes cluster. Then we talk a little bit about securing your application ingress. So if you deploy an application, how you can secure it easily with GitLab. And then we'll talk about serverless with GitLab. So just about how you can focus on your code instead of deployment and stuff like this and building your application. And at last point, I will do a quick demo of some day 2 operations tools, which you can integrate in GitLab, so monitoring, metrics, tracing, and so on. Okay, so let's jump in. First of all, yeah, I want to talk about how you can move your pipeline workload into your cluster. And with that, I will talk about the GitLab Runner Kubernetes executor. So what is the GitLab Runner Kubernetes executor? It's basically GitLab Runner as we know it, as we install it on our virtual machine to build and run our jobs. But this time, it's possible to run it within our Kubernetes cluster and the container as a pod. And so with this, you can containerize your whole pipeline, which basically means all of your pipeline steps are running in container. So all the pipeline steps are isolated. You can put all your dependencies and versions into your pipeline steps because they are based on the container image, and you can describe the container image. So every pipeline run is looking the same every time, which is pretty cool. Second thing is you can share your compute. So you could put different pipelines running next to each other on your cluster, and you can also scale your cluster if you are able to scale your Kubernetes cluster, scale your pipelines, sorry. So it's a pretty nice feature. How it's working, it's basically just a container which needs to deploy it in a Kubernetes cluster. First and nicest option is to just click it, install it with one click in the GitLab UI in your project. But the more production-ready deployment would be to use Helm or any kind of application deployment, and yeah, automate it and deploy it with a pipeline or anything else. So with that, the Kubernetes executor is doing some things besides just running your container image. So thinking about containerized pipeline, you could also run just a pipeline step with Docker run your image and provide a entry point script or so. The Kubernetes executor is doing some more things. It's completely, yeah, working with the whole lifecycle. So it's not only creating your container pod, which you defined for running your jobs, it's creating some, let's call it service container next to the main container within the pod. And those service containers are then used to clone your repo files, restore caches or download artifacts which are needed for your pipeline run. So it's just one line in your configuration, and you will get caching restores and artifacts where you need them, which is pretty hard if you're building your pipeline with Docker run and you need to mount all the stuff manually and so on. So it's pretty nice. So this is a pre-build step. And then actually we have the build step, a third one, where the actual pipeline steps you define are executed in your defined container image. Now this is actually the thing which you describe. And then at the last step, we have the post build steps, which then creates caches and uploads artifacts as you need them. Yeah, so let's have a look how this looks in action. So first of all, I've provided some demo projects, and all the projects are within a group. And within this group, I added my Kubernetes environment because I'm working with Kubernetes. So I've just integrated my project group with it. Just basically providing your Kubernetes details. Then you get some basic information about your health of your cluster. That needs 1 or 2 seconds with the CPU usage, memory usage, and so on. But the most important page is the applications page, where you can install predefined applications. In this case, we're talking about the GitLab runner. You can install the GitLab runner just with 1 click into your project or your group. And this GitLab runner we will now use in our project. Oh, we have a small project. It's not really fancy. It basically consists out of a Helm chart, which we use to deploy our application. We have a small read file, and we have a CI/CD pipeline. So if we check out the CI/CD pipeline, it's an easy one. It's just 1 stage with a deployment. We have some variables where we define our Helm image, which is basically the Docker image we will use to run our step. We define some Ingress host definition and a message, which I will talk about in a second. And then we run our steps, our stages, our stage and deploy. Our step is app deployment. We're providing a tag. This tag is used to find the GitLab runner you would like to execute it. So my GitLab runner is tagged with Kubernetes, and that's why this job will run on my Kubernetes environment. And then it's just defining the image and providing the steps the pipeline should run. In this case, it's just an easy Helm upgrade and deploying an application with a setting called custom message, which allows me to define a custom message in our deployment. So let's have a quick look. This is the application I'm talking about, just a basic web application with our logo, with Freed, and it says, hello world, I'm Freed. So just an easy hello world. If we now jump to the pipelines and run a new pipeline and just providing the message variable, which was hello world, and let's say hello GitLab, and then click on run, a new pipeline would be triggered, which means a new pod which would be created in our Kubernetes cluster, but then would run the Helm install scripts. So let's have a look from the Kubernetes side. Let's have a look at all the pods running at the moment. So with the GitLab runner itself, the GitLab runner itself is a pod listening for changes, and then the runner would schedule new pods, which then run the actual pipeline steps. So if I now head back and run the pipeline gets started. We see it's not yet got a runner. It's tagged with Kubernetes. Now the pipeline says, hey, it's waiting for our pod. If we change back to the Kubernetes environment, we see a new pod is being created. It's still pending. Now it's created. Now it is running. So have a look. Okay, A was too slow. The pod is already stopped again because the job is already finished. But basically, it's the same output we would have got in the pod itself. It's restoring caches, downloading artifacts. We do not have one, so it's completely empty, and then it's doing the Helm upgrade. And the job is succeeded, so everything's fine, everything's green. If we now head over to our demo page, we did the update, now it's hello GitLab. So it's basically the easy pipeline, which was completely run and built or deployed in our Kubernetes cluster. And this works with any kind of pipeline, any kind of dependencies. You just need to provide the image, which has all the dependencies, provide your steps, and then you can build your pipeline in the cluster. No, just an easy one in this case. Yeah, so next one. Now we would like to build container images in our cluster. So we are running any kind of pipeline workloads in our containers. So we need to containerize our applications to deploy them in Kubernetes, but we also need to build our job images, because now every job is a container. We now need somehow the ability to build container images for our job images. No. This is done by Kaniko. Kaniko's one solution. There are different others, but Kaniko is pretty nice and works pretty nice. One really nice thing of Kaniko is that it allows image builds, container builds without any privileges or dependencies. So you can just build your container image without needing root access or any kind of volume mounts and so on. You might know about Docker and Docker, or maybe already use it, which is basically running Docker within Docker, which then would allow to build container images in a container, but it has some kind of disadvantages, some security issues. So you would either need to mount your Docker socket within your container, which is a security issue. You could mount the Docker directory within multiple containers. If they're working on the same time, you might get any issues, and running privilege mode is also not so nice because of security reasons. So Kaniko is somewhat a nicer solution than Docker and Docker. Kaniko itself also runs in a container. So it's basically binary sitting in a container, which you can use to build your image. And here on the right, just let me get the laser. You see a small example. In this case, it's just a pod definition. So it's basically the same like Docker run, just in Kubernetes. We provide it with a name. We're providing the container image over here, and then providing some arguments to build our image. So basically where the Docker file is located, the context of our directory, and the destination. Destination would be our registry, as well as the image and tag. We could add multiple destinations or remove the destination tag at all if you just want to build and test it. So it's just easy, 3 lines of configuration. Then with building containers in a container, you need to think about caching to speed up your pipeline. Kaniko itself provides 2 different options. You can cache your layers. This is done by pushing and pulling the layers itself into an external registry. So then Kaniko can check, okay, it's a layer I know, and just pull the layer instead of rebuilding it, which is much faster. There can use our registry in our project. So we have container registries, GitLab. We can just use the registry we have. And on the other hand, we can cache our base images. So basically the from tag in our Docker file, and cache those images to get them faster instead of downloading them all the time. In this case, it's basically a local mount point. So something you need to mount into your container, and this can be done with GitLab caching feature with DICD. So it just provided within the cluster. Okay, so short demo from this one. Another small project. It's even smaller. We just have a Docker file. In this case, it's a Docker file providing the Helm CLI. So it's based on a Docker image of mine, and just installs the Helm CLI that we then can do the Helm install. But this is basically the image I used in the previous demo. just providing a Helm CI to be able to install some kind of applications. So let's have a look at the CI/CD pipeline. Once again, pretty easy. Just one stage. We have one variable which is set to debug. Debug is pretty important at the moment, so you need to run the debug tag of the Kaniko container image at the moment, because the Kaniko image itself does not provide a shell, and with that you wouldn't be able to inject your script set and on. So you need to run the debug image, with a little bit bigger than the normal one, but it allows you to execute shell commands. And then we have basically 3 lines of things we do. We just create a directory, and then putting in the config.json file our credentials to access our Docker registry, which is part of our project. So it's basically a username, which is GitLab CI token, and a password, which is the CI job token, which gets provided by the runner. So nothing you need to do, just copy the line and it will work. And then once again, we have our 3 steps. We have the context directory, we have our Docker file, and we have a destination. In this case, the destination once again is our own registry in this project, though this one here, and we provide an image name and a tag. So let's run this one. So once again, we get a container created. Let's see if I'm fast enough this time. See. And we do not see any logs. Perfect. So let's have a look here. Okay, it's still creating the container, and now we get some output. So it's looking basically the same like a Docker build. So we're retrieving some details or from image, then running all the installation steps, now patching some stuff to get a smaller image, defining the entry point, CMD line, and the job is already done. And now if we're moving over to our package container registry, we're seeing the Helm image and the latest tag we just created nearly 30 seconds ago. So pretty nice and easy way to build your container images within your Kubernetes cluster. So another one. So let's say we now deploy the application and we would like to secure it somehow. But that GitLab offers integration of a GitLab Web Application Firewall, which finds and tracks any kind of security issues. So SQL and code injection, cross-site scripting, or file inclusion and stuff like this. So it's just sitting in front of your application and make sure that no injections and scripting and so on is forwarded to your application itself. So with that, you will also get a nice thread monitoring dashboard in your Kubernetes, in your GitLab project UI. I will show it in a second. Yeah, basically also this feature is based on open source. So it's based on the Kubernetes Nginx Ingress with an enable mod security rule. So it's just basic Nginx configuration. And the mod security schedule applies the Open Web Application Security Project core rule set, which has some best practices and default rules which secure your application. And then you can decide when you install it, whether you would like to block your requests or just run a detection only. Detection only will then log all the things into your dashboard, or you can forward the logs and analyze them and working on them. Block feature will, of course, block the request. and do not forward it to your application. So once again, let's have a short demo of this one.
Hey, Nico.
Yeah.
One thing that's really cool, seeing a lot of people kind of using the chat to ask questions, and some folks are sharing resources and stuff there. Before you get into the demo, I was thinking maybe you could take a quick look through some of the chat questions and see if there were any that you wanted to tackle before your demo.
Sure, of course. So just let me find my chat window. Show chat.
Sorry to
Here we
interrupt
go.
your flow. I know you were rolling right there.
Everything fine, everything fine. So let's start from the beginning. Is Kaniko free? Yes, Kaniko is open source project by Google. So it's totally free. You can just use it and also contribute to it. Okay, the link was already shared. Can you send me the Kaniko pod YAML? Yes, I can do afterwards if I don't miss it. Otherwise, all my demo code is shared. So all the repos I'm showing you are published on GitLab, and I have a link to it on the last slide. So you don't need to write all the stuff. You will get the details. Kaniko container itself must be run as root as per the documentation. I don't think so. So at least our deployment at the moment didn't run with root access, and it worked. So normally there should not be any kind of root dependencies. So, and yes, Kaniko runs without any root access. Okay, perfect. So any questions so far on the web application firewall thing? Okay, so let's continue. Okay, once again, we are on the Kubernetes cluster configuration page, and here we have the option to install our Ingress cluster. And here we see the mod security web application firewall. We can enable, disable it. For me, it's enabled at the moment. And then I can set some global settings and define whether I would like to run it in logging mode and just log any kind of issues, or if I would like to run it in blocking mode, which basically means the request gets blocked, which is the setting I defined in my in my environment. So with that, one more thing. So this is the threat monitoring I showed you. So in the project within security compliance, you have the threat monitoring dashboard. At the moment, for me, it's pretty empty because it's just a demo environment. I will see the total requests with the request was having a security issue, and normally we should see a nice line. In my case, it's just this one, which has I think 70 total requests. I just tested the demo in front of the session. Yeah, and now I have a small demo application where I can put in my name and then get a greeting. But I also could add some kind of JavaScript, so some kind of script tag. So just putting in a script tag, putting in an alert message with any kind of text here. So this is a cross-site scripting attack in this case. And now when I push the quitting button, I would normally get a pop-up notification from my parser. In this case, I shouldn't get it because I'm getting a forbidden. So our web application firewall kicks in, sees the injection, and cancels or stop the whole request because we told him to block all kind of issues. So pretty nice. I will not see it on the threat monitoring dashboard because the request was completely blocked. So normally, if I would put it on logging only, I would also now see the issue here on the dashboard. Okay, so let me check for questions before heading to the next topic. At the work on other increases like traffic. Yeah, so I'm not sure. So the settings, the rule set is open source, and I think it's basically works with every HTTP browser. It might be some configuration you need to do. Also for Ingress itself, you might need to not deploy the default Helm chart or the default configuration, do some tweaking, but normally it should work to use those kind of rules in other Ingresses. But then not with the nice integration of just enable it here, then you need to deploy it on your own, but then using the same functionality should work. And yes, the Web Application Firewall is also free from GitLab side. Okay. Next one. Next one is about GitLab Serverless. So basically, a nice solution to allow you to focus on your code instead of thinking about how you can build your containerized applications or deploy your containerized applications. So it's basically just writing your code, committing your code, and GitLab is doing the rest. Yeah, once again, you only need to care about your code. So it's basically a function as a service provided by GitLab and open source. The whole setting, the whole function is based on Knative, which is an open source serverless stack by Google. Also used with Kaniko, because Kaniko is used in the stack to build the images, and Istio as a service mesh, which is used to route the requests based on your version and so on. So Istio is a dependency for using Knative. And this together with a nice UI in GitLab is the GitLab serverless function. So it works with Go, Node.js, and Ruby by default, but you can also use it with C#, PHP, and Python with the Open FOSS integration, which it has a slightly different configuration, but the features are basically the same. And for any kind of other language you would like to use, you can't use the serverless function, but you can run serverless applications, which basically means you just need to write the Docker file. So you need to provide GitLab with the information how to build your application, and then you can use nearly the same features. So still do not need to think about the deployment, you just need to think about the build steps. Because it's completely based on open source tools or not locked to any cloud, you can also use it with multi-cloud support. So you can deploy it on Azure, you can deploy it in Google or AWS. It also includes an auto-scaling feature, so you can scale your functions as you need them. We can also scale them to 0, which is pretty nice. If you have some batch jobs which only run the night, the function will only run when those jobs are scheduled and not the whole 22 hours in the of the day, which also saves you money. Yeah, small demo on this one. Once again, a small project with some files in it. And this time it's just a basic Node.js example, and it's not doing much more than doing a console log and providing a small response. So it's basically just providing a small response. In this lab, hello from GitLab Serverless. This is what we will see when we run the application. With this, we once again have a GitLab CI CD definition, and we have a serverless definition file. And so they're pretty small. We just tell CI/CD to include a template, which is provided by GitLab. And then you just need to define 2 functions, a build function, a deploy function. We can provide an environment if we would like to. That is it. Everything else is completely handled by the template provided by GitLab. And in the serverless YAML file, we just need to define some more definitions. We need to tell, hey, this is a function. We need to provide a trigger, a provider. In this case, it's trigger mesh, which is the default. So the whole GitLab CI stuff is also based on trigger mesh. If you don't run one of those 3 supported languages, you would need to use Open FOSS in this case. And then it's just providing your handler, your source, which is basically the directory the code is in, and the runtime. In this case, Node.js. So 10 lines. And with this, GitLab knows what it needs to do. So we now run this application. Oh, let's do it on that. So I already started it. It would take some minutes. So let's have a look on the old ones. So it's just building your application with some internal tools. Here, once again, it's building your Docker images, and the job is done. And then it's deploying all the things onto your Kubernetes cluster. So from the Kubernetes side, we now have a new namespace, and we get a namespace per applications. In this case, we have this serverless sample namespace, and we see there's no pod in it at the moment. Because I did not run this function for some hours, it's scaled down to 0. So let's do a curl. In this case, it's just a post request providing some data and against our endpoint. And if I now press enter, we should see on the left side, yeah, we see a new container schedule. Of course, it takes some time until we get our response, because the container is just starting and it's pretty slow at the moment. Here we go. Now it's running, and now we get our response. So other example is if we just do some load testing, doing 100 requests, and concurrence is also 100 for 30 seconds. We should see that the whole pipeline, the whole serverless function is scale out. And it's creating some other newer containers. So we have different IDs all the time. So we now should have, I don't know, 5, 10, some more containers running. So it's scattering out. It would then, if we stop the whole thing, it would wait some time and then scale down again. So with this, we also get a nice nice UI in our GitLab overview. So it's within operations serverless. And there we should see our application, our functions, so get a list of all of our functions. And if we access the function, we're seeing, now 16 pods are running. And we get a nice overview about the requests. So in this case, we have nearly 50,000 requests on this function at the moment. So it scales out. And if we wait, I don't know, 5 minutes, we would basically see 1 pod. And then after another 5 minutes, it will scale down to 0 because it takes 10 minutes. As the default value, you can customize it to scale down to 0. So, any questions on serverless so far? I don't see any. Okay, perfect. So then I have one last thing before we can wrap up. It's about monitoring, logging, and tracing. So first of all, observability is key. So it's pretty important to know your application, to know the metrics of your applications, to have easy access to your logs and so on. So it's pretty important to have any kind of monitoring, logging, tracing tools. And with GitLab, you get a nice and easy solution to integrate some of the open source tools you may know into your project. So you can use Prometheus to collect your application metrics and access it within your GitLab repository. You can use ELK, so Elasticsearch, log/Kibana, to access your logs in your application cluster, in your GitLab project. And then you can also integrate it with Jaeger for distributed tracing, or Sentry for error tracing, and so on. So with this, the Elasticsearch, log/Kibana, as well as Prometheus, is fully integrated within your GitLab CI/CD. So you can just, once again, go to the Kubernetes page, going on the GitLab runner, where you installed the GitLab runner, and select Prometheus and install it, and select Elastic Stack and install it into your cluster. Which then will happen is that you will get, let me close this one. Let's minus, you will get some more apps in your GitLab managed app space. You will get the Elasticsearch stack. And you also will get a Prometheus deployment running in your Kubernetes cluster. And this can then be used to run all your logs and metrics data. So jump over back to the UI. We're now getting some more options. First of all, within operation and metrics, you will get a nice view, a nice dashboard, and it shouldn't take long, about all of your Kubernetes clusters or your memory usage of your deployment, CPU usage. If you would use Canary features, I didn't enable this in my example, you also would get those. And those are metrics out of the Prometheus deployment. You can duplicate and build your own dashboards and add your own metrics into this. This will just use this default one. You can select environments if you have deployments into different environments, productions, tests, and so on. So you can build your nice dashboards within your project. What you also will get is with an operations logs, the log output of all your clusters. This is done by Elasticsearch. So once again, you can select your environment. You can filter your pods. In this case, it's all pods, but you can also just select one of the deployment and drill down into the logs. You have search feature, so you can search for an error message or info message or so. So pretty nice. With environments itself, you also get a nice overview about your deployment. So how many instances are running, or failing, pending, or even in Canary deploy if you use it. So it's also a nice overview. Yeah, and then two more things, which are tracing and error tracking, which can be integrated, but this would only provide a link to your existing Jaeger deployment or your existing error tracking, but it's also nice jump down into further debugging options. Yeah, so with this and the demo page, I would like to wrap up. I think I'm pretty in time. So let's check for questions. Does anyone use GitLab integration with Kubernetes and productions? So I think it's more questions for the audience. So anyone would like to talk about it? It's using it at the moment? Nobody? Really? I don't think so. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. You hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Oh yeah, I am currently using the GitLab runner in my Kubernetes, but I would like to try the integration part. But the thing is, in my company they only provide namespace as a service, not cluster as a service. So I only have
Okay.
access to namespace. But for what I saw in GitLab, you can define a namespace. You have to define a cluster. Is that right? Or
Yeah, you need to define a cluster, but then you can deploy the runner into a specific namespace.
yeah, that's what
So
we are doing.
I'm pretty sure you will not have all the information. You might need to work with your colleagues to get it running, but then you can lock it down to the namespace you're owning.
I didn't follow. Sorry. Because when we go in the GitLab interface, you are directly asking for a cluster, not for a cluster and a namespace. So, but
Yes. So you need to add the cluster details because of authentication. But then you can decide if you add a new cluster. Okay, I already have one. So you could then decide. So the basic information, the credentials, you will need someone to provide them.
Okay.
But then you can put everything which you install into one namespace. But I understand your issue. So
yeah, because I have a credential, I have a service account by namespace. So I am the administrator of my namespace, but not of the cluster. So but I have
okay, but if you have a service account, I think it should work.
I have a service account in my namespace. But,
okay,
so
but then you can just put in the token and the credentials of the service account into the Kubernetes cluster setup. I never did it, but I guess it should work. If you have all the,
I was going to try it, but I was going to try it, but I was just asking if I just put my service account credentials in GitLab, he will see that my service account is bound to a namespace, not. But I think there is some metrics I will not have I will not have access because my service account in my namespace doesn't have the right to, let's say, request the nodes or stuff like that. But
okay, yeah, there might also be some kind of resources in Kubernetes which are not namespaced. Based on the deployment you're doing. So for the runner itself, I think it's not a big issue if you don't run it as root access, but the other deployments might need to define cluster roles, cluster role binding, and so on.
Yeah, the runner is working fine. I already have multiple pipelines in my namespace. It was really the integration part, monitoring my deployments, stuff like that. But I was looking if GitLab was able to monitor my Kubernetes namespace, not my Kubernetes cluster, because I don't have a cluster, I have only namespace. So if the integration and monitoring part was able to focus only on a namespace, not knowing that as the namespace level, you don't have access to stuff like nodes information or anything else, maybe for what. But
so maybe we can chat afterwards, or can send me some details and I can have a look on it. So I never tried it, but maybe we will somehow work out together and get it working.
Oh, or maybe later, because we just started with GitLab. So, but I was just looking for this information. If you don't know too, it's okay.
Okay, perfect. So just ping me. if you would like to.
Okay.
Okay, I think we got some more questions. There was a discussion about Web Application Firewall being GitLab free or not. I personally think it's on free. Maybe some of the GitLab folks can jump in.
Yeah, so I think what Adam was saying was that it was not in core. It looks like, you know, Karsten pointed to the link that shows it is in core.
I think it is, to be honest, but
it is.
at least I did the.
It's
did
in core.
this
The
demo.
plugin is in core.
Ah, okay, perfect. So it's in core. Perfect. Okay.
There's some
so
questions about
where do
logs.
the logs? Yeah. So logs are stored in the Elasticsearch stack. So they're collected with which file beat and stored into Elasticsearch. And there is a log retention. I'm not sure. I think it's 30 days. You can customize this. So there is a job running every day, which is deleting the old indexes. I think it's 30 days, but I'm not 100% sure. And you can customize it. Is it possible to set alertings on logs in GitLab? I don't think though that you can do it within the GitLab UI, but you can, of course, jump into Kibana, building a dashboard and doing logging, or also jump in Prometheus and building a dashboard with Grafana and so on, and doing alerts with Alert Manager. Can you copy paste the links? Thanks, John, for doing it. And the last one, how do you scan for dependencies and embedded credentials? Yeah, so it depends. So for my image scans, I sometimes use the tools from Aqua and include them in my build steps. For embedded credentials, I did not use anything so far. So it's more a policy thing at our side to not store credentials. Okay. Any further questions or discussions?
All right, I think that was, oh, I see one more question just came in, so I'll let you answer Kevin's question and then I'll wrap it up.
It's possible to get more than one remote shell in environments. Never tried this one, to be honest. I'm not sure.
All right, we stumped you on the last question. So now I just want to do something we've been doing at all of our remote meetups. If everyone could just unmute for a second, turn your camera on if you're cool with that, and give Nico a round of applause. I know we can't all be in the same room, but it'd be nice to show some appreciation to him. So just join me for that.
Thank you.
Amazing.
That was one of my favorite meetups that we've done virtually. I love the interaction in the chat. Thanks to everyone who was chiming in and asking questions, answering questions. It was really cool to watch that kind of unfold as Nico was going through his talk. So I appreciate the interaction there. And yeah, I hope you'll all join us for future meetups. We plan to do these about weekly going forward. Sometimes if there's conflicts with other events that we have scheduled, we'll take a week off. But in general, we're planning to get together every week. And I hope that many of you will stay involved in the GitLab community that way. You know, if folks, you know, are interested in participating in future meetups, if you have ideas for topics you want to hear about, if you want to volunteer to speak at an event, you know, we'd love to have more community members, you know, speak at our future meetups. So please reach out, you know, if you're interested in becoming a speaker at one of our upcoming meetups, or if you have topic suggestions. And if you're interested in organizing your own remote meetup, we have a checklist that we put together. It's on the GitLab site. Just go check out, Google for GitLab Virtual Meetups, and you'll find a link to our checklist there, and that can help you get started if you want to organize a meetup for your community. So with that being said, just want to thank everybody for participating today. Thank you again, Nico. That was really great. Really great talk. And yes, I see KBN's asking how do they request or suggest a topic? Thanks for pointing out that I neglected to explain that. Just send an email to evangelists. So like the first word in my title with an S at the end, at gitlab.com. And that'll go to me and other folks on the community relations team that are involved in organizing these events. And yeah, if you have any further questions, you can also check into the GitLab Gitter channel. I live in there, so I'll be happy to kind of answer your questions there in a more synchronous manner. And sorry, I'm just putting the evangelist email in the chat for everyone. And yeah, thank you all for participating today. And I hope to see you again at a meetup soon.
Thank you, Nico.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, John.
Take care.
Bye.